and thanks everyone for joining. I appreciate everyone tuning in this early. I'm pleased we're able to make this work and to do it from a safe distance. I'm grateful to all my South Florida colleagues for joining as well. I'm not going to take a long time. We have great speakers. I want you to hear from South Florida residents who have been struggling with the state unemployment system for weeks and for months. According to data published by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, 1.42 million Floridians have filed unique unemployment claims, but only half of those claims, less than half, have been paid. That means that hundreds of thousands of Floridians who lost their jobs and their incomes because of this deadly virus are still waiting for checks and for answers. These are families who are just trying to manage. They're trying to manage distance learning for their kids. They're trying to put food on the table. Congress came together to do its part. We all did our own part in staying home and flattening the curve to save lives. But that took a tremendous toll on Floridians who lost their jobs and needed that assistance when they first applied. We passed the CARES Act on March 27th. We knew that it was only going to get worse for unemployed Americans, which is why we provided the three major unemployment benefits, the extra $600 on top of the paltry $275 the state provides, the 13 additional weeks for those who've already exhausted their state benefits, and for the first time extending benefits to gig workers, contractors, and self-employed workers. But there are two problems. One, the state isn't processing these claims fast enough, and two, we can't even tell what part of the CARES Act benefits are being paid. In short, Congress was there for Florida's unemployed, but Governor DeSantis hasn't been. There are a whole host of questions about how the state handled these claims, whether Floridians are getting the correct amount of people eligible for federal benefits or even getting them. These hundreds of thousands of Floridians waiting for their benefits won't be able to participate in any reopened economy right away. They're still tightening their belts. They're drawing on savings. They're using funds they save for retirement. Every Floridian waiting for their benefit to arrive is one less potential customer for a local store and restaurant when it reopens. And for those business owners who have struggled to stay in business, they'll obviously need all the business they can get. Every day, my office hears from hundreds of constituents who are deeply frustrated. Their applications are pending or they've been denied. They have specific questions. They try to call to get answers, but it takes hours or days to get through. And then they get conflicting information between what the governor says and what the DEO says. The DEO spent over $100 million to make changes to the system, and still hundreds of thousands of people are still waiting. We know the system is broken. We just don't even know how badly it's broken. Governor DeSantis owes the public honest answers of when they can expect their benefits. Instead of spending all this time trying to figure out what happened to the unemployment system, the governor needs to get Floridians who are waiting the assistance that they need. We've helped with the CARES Act, but the governor is number one. He's the governor. And he's left hundreds of thousands of Florida's families desperate and frustrated and angry. This is a failure of leadership, period. We want to help, but the governor needs to lead. And with that, I appreciate everyone being on the call. I'd like to invite Congressman Hastings to say a few words. Alcee? Alcee, if you're on, you can unmute. If not, Congressman Wasserman Schultz, please. All right, Debbie, you're gonna have to unmute. Thank you.
Sorry about that. As I said, I want to thank my colleague, Congressman Deutsch, for organizing this important alarm bell that we are continuing to sound on the crisis that exists in Florida with our unemployment compensation system being completely broken and a governor who is unwilling to fix it. For starters, most calls into my office since this crisis started are still desperate, frazzled Floridians trying to get jobless benefits. Mind you, we are not the officials at the federal level who can help them directly with that. Yet every single day, in spite of that panic, there is some spit out your coffee story tied to the state's unemployment system. This week, there were conflicting messages by Governor DeSantis and the DEO official that currently is in charge of it, on whether applicants need to log into the flawed Connect system every 2 weeks to claim benefits. Experts are recommending to do it just to be safe, but no one is clear and directions are not being provided specifically accurately. And State Senator Jason Pizzo, a state senator who covers part of my congressional district, just shared unreal messages from inside the DEO call centers, the new call centers that Governor DeSantis was supposedly standing up to help with processing jobless claims, where new inept supervisors interact with powerless workers who essentially can do nothing to help the people process their claims, and they leave desperate callers with no help. Yet the callous and inept response from our governor manages to outrage people even more. Every day, DeSantis' incompetence and mismanagement triggers mass misery among struggling families who can least afford it. He bungles the daily operations of the DEO, sure, but the worst part is that he ignores the long-term problem there. The unemployment relief that Florida manages to provide makes it America's cellar dweller. And we are still not able to fully process and provide the pandemic unemployment assistance that Congress provided to make sure that we could tighten and weave that safety net so that there are not holes through which people are going to fall. We're among the lowest in the nation when it comes to the length and level of benefits, yet DeSantis still refuses to do anything to address that, even though he has the power under Chapter 252 to do that. And of course, DeSantis wants to lay these problems at the feet of his Republican predecessor, and Senator Scott certainly deserves a lot of the blame for how we got here. And he should also, by the way, be glad he's not on the ballot, because I'm sure he'd be tossed very quickly for the nightmare that he set up. But at the end of the day, the reason that he did that was to falsely inflate his own jobs numbers. DeSantis, though, owns this quagmire. The buck stops with you. He's in charge, and he owes it to all Floridians to provide swift relief and real reform of this system. This coronavirus will not be defeated in a few months. People are going to need assistance well into next year, and DeSantis cannot continue this pattern of callous indifference and incompetence. The numbers are bone-chilling. Last week, 222,000 new claims were filed in Florida alone. Now, we've got just under 700,000 people who have received benefits. More than that are still waiting to get them, and 330,000 people have been rejected. And they're telling people to reapply, but this is an endless, vicious cycle of callous indifference and incompetence that has to be fixed. DeSantis needs to bring real competence and manpower to bear, and he needs to raise and extend benefits, not tomorrow, not next week, but now. Thank you. Ted, you have to unmute. One good turn deserves another.
Just seeing if everyone was paying attention. We have a lot of people who have 9 o'clock, so I'm going to go to Jesse. I'll introduce you in a second. Then the members who need to leave, and Dr. Ullman needs to leave. We'll try to give everyone an opportunity before you do. Jesse Segan of Pompano Beach was furloughed on March 23rd. His employer asked him to wait to apply for benefits. He did on April 13th and is still waiting to receive those benefits. Jesse, thanks for joining us.
Hi guys, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, Congressman Deutsch. Thank you guys for having me and for inviting me to today's morning meeting. Yes, just exactly as you said, I was furloughed due to COVID-19. My brother actually tested positive. He resides with me. I was a former resident of Boca, actually where I was employed with my previous employer. I now live in Pompano Beach. From March 23rd, while I was furloughed, I tried every attempt possible. I think like Debbie touched anyone on the line of unemployment in Tallahassee who I was able to get through with a callback number just was powerless, just had nothing that they can offer. Just they were able to call you back maybe once every so often, but with no option for helping you unlock a claim or tell you why the claim is pending to verify identity. So 2 weeks after being furloughed, 2 weeks after I resubmitted my claim again through the FedEx, took that option. I know it may have not been the right route, but I did whatever was possible. I was also able to get in touch with District 92 with Patricia Williams through her legislative assistant, Natalie Charles, which I'm sure you guys have met with Patricia before. Great office. She was able to send over information as well, just as your office did for me, to try to get information, which also didn't work. So as of now, approximately 5 weeks later, I still have a pending claim that's locked. I don't know what locked means, but I've done everything from faxing letters over to calling on a daily basis with the same result, just no money and no income coming in. So at this point, feels like it's 2 months in of no chance of seeing unemployment benefits. And obviously, I believe I'm not returning back to my company after this. I was permanently let go after being furloughed for that amount of time. So yeah, that's pretty much my situation right now. It's pretty much a waiting game and leaving it up to the hands of whoever reviews my form at some point. Sorry, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Thanks very much for joining us this morning. If you can stick around to answer questions,
For sure.
it shouldn't have to be a waiting game left up to some unknown person. The whole purpose of unemployment benefits are to help people when they need them. So appreciate your being here. Next, Representative Shalala is on the Rules Committee and needs to head to the floor so we can prepare the HEROES Act. But Representative Shalala, please.
Thank you very much, Representative Deutsch. Social Security is not a new program. It's been around since 1935. It was established exactly for major crises like this. And we're not getting calls to our offices. We're getting cries. People are weeping on the phone because they can't get access to the UI system. There's no excuse. The governor is playing with the data even here. We have no idea what checks people are getting. People are calling my office and saying they got a $275 check, but they didn't get the $600 check. Our data doesn't tell us how inefficient and inexcusable this system is in Florida, and the governor is responsible. Thousands of Floridians, thousands of people in my own district are unemployed, have applied for UI benefits. And like Jesse, they can't get information, they haven't gotten their checks, and they're desperate. And we're pleading, yelling, jumping up and down, screaming on their behalf. We've done our job. The money is there. The state needs to get it out. And there's no excuses that are acceptable when people in our community are hurting, when they don't have the money to buy food for their children, they don't have the money to pay their rent or to pay their mortgages. But more importantly, it's their money. We've brought this money back to Florida, this tax money that they paid in over the years, and they deserve to get it back. Since 1935, we've had a UI system. There's no excuse for Florida not to be delivering these checks to the people of Florida. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Representative Shalala. Next, we'll go to Dr. Stephen Ullman, who is the Department Chair and Professor of Health Management and Policy at the University of Miami. Stephen specializes in, among other things, economics and healthcare policy. Dr. Ullman, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Representative Deutsch. And actually, let me thank you, Jesse, because you're indicating some of the issues that we're seeing out there. One of the areas that we're looking at is trying to open up our economy again and opening up our little local stores in the state of Florida. The realization is that we're sitting now with a labor force that was 10.3 million in the economy, but now, as of this morning, there are 2 million claims for unemployment. And again, as indicated, less than a third of them are currently getting their benefits. But let me talk to you about how this affects in terms of the retail market as well. So we are talking about reopening the economy. But unless you have demand for those providers, you're not going to have any opening of the economy. You need people to demand things so that stores can stay open. And that's one of the issues going on right now. And you can look at it in terms of almost a snowball effect if you can get things going, if you can get people with their unemployment checks purchasing stuff. Let me give you an example. This is called the multiplier effect. If I now get some benefits and I go out now, and again, I have kids, and I take my kids to get their haircut because they have not had their haircut for a while, that barbershop now has economic activity, and the barbershop now has to hire an additional barber. And that barber goes out now and says, I need to buy some fish for my kids at the local aquarium. And the aquarium now hires individuals. And the purpose, people who are hired by the aquarium go out to the sub shop for lunch. And the sub shop now has to hire additional workers, and they have to hire people to deliver. And so delivery people are hired, and they go then to get coffee at the convenience store on their way to make their delivery, and on and on and on. This is the multiplier effect. If you can get things going with these people now getting their unemployment benefits and purchasing initially in the economy, you start opening up and growing the economy store by store by store and consumer by consumer by consumer. That's what you want to get going. That's the multiplier effect.
Thanks very much. It's exactly the point as the governor continues to talk about reopening the economy. Steve, we're very appreciative of your insight, because the point is, aside from the fact, as Representative Shalala said, that everyone who's applied is entitled to receive, for all the people who are entitled to receive it, they should be getting these payments. It also will have a profound impact on the state as a whole, and I don't understand why this isn't more of a priority in getting this fixed and getting people what they need. Next, Representative Debbie McCarcel-Powell, I think, is online. Debbie, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Please, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Congressman Deutsch, for putting this together. Look, we've had several of these press conferences, and we have all been sounding the alarm now for weeks since we passed the CARES Act. It's been almost 8 weeks since we did that, to add the $600 benefit to include gig workers and independent contractors. And like my colleagues have mentioned, we are receiving, those are the calls that we're handling at each of our offices every single day, hundreds of calls asking for help because they cannot get, they're either denied, gig workers and independent contractors cannot get their applications processed, people are not receiving the benefits that they need, and they can't pay for their food and for their rent. And that was the main purpose of the Economic Relief CARES Act. Now, we conducted a survey, which I released the results yesterday, asking my constituents to provide details on their experience applying for benefits through the FDEO. And the survey results made it very clear that the system in place is completely dysfunctional, it's inadequate for those that are trying to apply for unemployment benefits. Specifically, we surveyed almost 4,300 people, and almost 98% of them, almost 98% said that they were highly and very unhappy with the FDEO's handling of the sharp increase in unemployment due to the pandemic, and nearly 90% listed their application experience as very negative. So the survey results really confirm what we already know, what we're discussing here, that the Florida's unemployment system is a complete disaster. Like Congressman Deutsch, we have absolutely no leadership from this governor. He's had weeks to fix the system, and he's had several state senators and congressional delegation that is willing to do whatever it takes to help Floridians access these benefits. Now, today we're going to be voting on legislation that actually enhances unemployment benefits. And we're also including hundreds of millions of dollars to support unemployment systems across the country. So we would like to see the governor take swift action so that he can put the structure in place. Again, there are experts all over the country. The governor of Rhode Island was just talking about what she had to do to fix that unemployment system in her state. And she got private companies, tech companies to come and assist her, and they have fixed that system very rapidly. I would suggest the governor to maybe give her a call and see what she did to fix her system. But with the millions of dollars that we're passing today, the HEROES Act, he can hire staff and do whatever it needs to bolster our unemployment results in the state of Florida. I'm hopeful that we're going to be passing the legislation later today, and that the Senate will put partisan politics aside so that they can do what is right for our communities and pass this much needed aid for our communities in Florida so that we can get back on track.
Great. Thanks very much, Representative McCarcel-Powell. We'll hear from, just to let everyone know, we'll hear from Congressman Hastings next, and then Al Toren will come to you.
Ted,
yes, Elsie.
thanks so very much for doing this. I don't know about in your respective offices. I have talked with some of you, But the calls that we are getting are from people that are in pain or seeking unemployment compensation. And they have been for quite some time, some of them staying on the computer for protracted periods of time into the morning and not being successful. And then the other thing is this stuff runs out in 12 weeks and they're pretty much right back where they started from. Now, my honest assessment is, and I think you put it best, Congressman Deutsch, when you said that never mind about who's at blame, let's fix the thing. You know, and I can't believe that a state as resourceful as ours cannot pull in the necessary people to address flaws in the Florida inadequate unemployment benefit system. And there's no question that everybody feels that it's down. We have written letter after letter trying to get an understanding and to prod them and to tell them that we're willing. I've even turned to my state senator, Perry Thurston, who most of the cases, our districts overlap, and most of the cases are people that he can address in the state system, but everybody that's calling, and we're getting hundreds, literally, of calls about this. And people feel very strongly that the whole government is not working, and that is not a good thing. It's quite simply unacceptable. I will continue to urge the governor to make the changes necessary to get benefits to those who are desperately in need, but have been denied, or are still waiting for their application to be processed by the state's overwhelmed system. I stand, as this delegation does, and you have demonstrated that, Ted, to assist the governor should he choose to exercise his authority to make the long overdue overhaul of this broken system, including expanding access to these benefits. The reality is that every single day that Floridians have to wait to receive unemployment, that is a day too long. We are working actively and assiduously in this regard, and I demand, as a citizen of the state, that people be treated better than they're being treated in this particular tranche of money. And I'm saddened by the fact that the people who need it the most seem to take the shaft the most. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative Hastings. Next up, we'll hear from Alvin Torn of Deerfield Beach. Alvin works as a limo driver. He applied March 29th for unemployment benefits and has gone many weeks without a paycheck, still waiting on the state. Alvin, if you could please share your experience with us. If you could, you might be, are you muted? Is the mute on? All right, we'll take that out. No. All right, we're going to go now. Jason from my office will be in touch to figure out what's wrong with your connection, and in the meantime, we'll go to Congresswoman Wilson. Freddie?
This is Congresswoman Wilson. Good morning.
Good morning.
I represent District 24 in Miami-Dade County. The district lines were designed and drawn by Fair Districts, a Democratic organization, and consequently, we are the most suffering district in the nation. Not the state, the nation, #1 in everything. The most HIV/AIDS cases, the most COVID-19 cases, the least testing, the most unemployed, the least access to unemployment compensation, PPP, the least access. We suffer. And I'm always angry. You could call me an angry Black woman who is screaming today for help for struggling Democratic District 24. It's packed with very, very poor people, African Americans, and immigrants. Every day, my office is flooded with desperate pleas from people crying out for help for everything. They're having difficulty. They've lost everything, their jobs, their health care. They're losing their cars and will lose their homes. And they cannot navigate the state's unemployment system. I tried to call the governor with no success. So I recently wrote the governor a letter urging him to make much needed improvements to the unemployment system. Specifically, I asked him to hire more representatives to help applicants navigate the unemployment website. I asked him to overhaul the website so applicants can efficiently navigate the system without technical difficulties. I asked him to increase the weekly state benefits from the current $275. I asked him to implement clear guidelines for applicants to access the expanded unemployment benefits provided under the CARES Act. I asked him to allow self-employed and gig workers to access the state employment benefits and to retroactively provide benefits from the date applicants lost their employment. While businesses are preparing to reopen next week, many of our unemployed workers will still be without jobs. And I asked him to hear my cry, hear my plea. Governor Sanchez, I'm asking you today to do your job.
Congresswoman Wilson, thank you very much for your powerful words. I think that we're going to go to Congresswoman Frankel next, and then now it sounds like we just about have you back. So Congresswoman Frankel, please. Lois, you might need to unmute.
You know, you would think I would have learned that by now. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Good to be with you. Good morning. And Ted, thank you for putting this together here. So, you know, like my colleagues, our office has been flooded with calls of people crying, desperate for help. I want to tell you a story of a young woman who called me personally. She's an adult, but she called me about her mother. Her mother, who has been working since age 15, has her own housekeeping business, and you could imagine that business has really gone away over the last several weeks. Anyway, her father both lost their job. And, you know, this woman who's now about 45 years old had never in her life had her hand out for any kind of charity at all. And she was, when her daughter checked in on her, she was actually too embarrassed to tell her that she had run out of food. There are thousands and thousands of people like that here in Florida who have been working their entire lives and now are unemployed, no fault of their own. And you know, it was bad enough that we had a embarrassingly stingy system that was designed not to work, but now it's just become plain cruelty. It is just plain cruelty not getting these benefits out to workers. And I just want to urge, my message to the governor is, you know, I know you are trying to do reopenings around this state, but we all know this: the virus is not going away anytime soon. We are headed towards more and more unemployment. Only some jobs will come back. And please, the governor should not divert your attention away from the thousands and thousands of desperate Floridians who need to be able to pay their bills, to buy their food. And I join my colleague, Representative Marshall Powell, in saying that we're all here in Washington, the members of Congress, we're here in Washington. We're going to vote for more needed benefits for our constituents and challenge the Senate to follow our lead. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Deutsch. Before we continue, I just want to remind everyone, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat function to message the host or email Jason. Thank you.
Jason, thanks. Lois, thanks very much. Thanks for your comments, and thanks for being a leader on this from the start. Al, I think we can. Do we have you by audio now, Al?
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Al Torin, you're recognized. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Congressman Deutsch, for holding this meeting. I don't have a tremendous amount to add because you've heard this story thousands or many thousands of times, but the website is impossible. It is getting better, but that's the only good part about it. But I have been denied or declared ineligible 3 different ways. The first way was not even no excuse at all, just ineligible. Then it was told that I was not eligible because I did not have enough income. And when you have no income, then you don't have enough income. I don't even remember now what the third one is. So right now, it just happened yesterday. I just looked on the website. I have applied twice, like anybody who applied before April 1st had to do, which is silly enough. And I also applied through the PUA. I think the first one was because I'm a self-employed, that I was not eligible for normal unemployment benefits. But I reapplied for the PUA, and I'm still going through the same thing. I'm trying to be patient, and I just have no idea what else I could do. So I appreciate you and all your colleagues for having this meeting, and hopefully pressure will help.
Well, Al, I appreciate your joining us. I'm sorry that you have to go through this. I'm sorry, Jesse, you have to go through this. And the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of Floridians who have families who are impacted by this, who aren't eligible to access the benefits that you're entitled to, the additional benefits that Congress passed. This is not, we'll go to questions in 1 second. I'll just make the point that all of us know, this is not the first call like this we've done. We've sent letters. We have offered to help. Most of the members of Congress have reached out personally to the governor's office, seeing what we could do to be helpful. We're all in this together, but while it's perfectly well and fine to think about whether or not we're going to be able to have Major League Baseball take place in our state, as the governor was ruminating on just earlier this week, that's not what's on the minds of Floridians. We want to know why Jesse and Al and hundreds of thousands of other people do not have access to the unemployment benefits that they deserve. So with that, Jason, please go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Alex Dougherty.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Wanted to ask, I understand the issues with the state system, but are there any additional federal benefits that you think are necessary that need to be passed in Congress now to help alleviate the unemployment crisis nationally and in Florida? And if so, what do you think can be reasonably agreed to by all sides in Washington, given that I know the HEROES Act likely faces an uphill battle in the Senate and likely veto from the president?
I have thoughts. I've been talking a lot. I'm happy to defer to my colleagues first on this. Debbie or Lois or Freddie or.
I'll just briefly say that the HEROES Act, which don't count it out yet. I mean, is a framework for negotiation, and we do have additional assistance, lengthening the time in which we are going to weave that safety net of the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance payment, because obviously the economic situation that we're in is not short term. We expect that we're going to have a very challenging economic environment for some time to come. And so making sure that those $600 a week payments continue while the economy is very fragile, and while, you know, the economist that spoke mentioned that, you know, our economy is demand-based. And so in spite of the fact that we have reopenings, people are smart. They're voting with their feet. In Florida, there was a story earlier this week that showed that even though Governor DeSantis irresponsibly refused to shut the state down when he should have, people were beginning to stay home. And like the responsible people that chose to make that decision, that helped flatten our curve sooner than it might have, people are also likely not going to rush back into restaurants and rush back into businesses. So making sure we have that extended unemployment assistance past the additional 13 weeks from when someone becomes unemployed and their state benefits don't continue, and the PEUA assistance and extending their state benefits expire, we're going to need to make sure we have that safety net in place. And so that's part of the HEROES Act, and we have additional small business and other assistance provided as well. And hopefully the Senate and the President will agree that we can't just leave people twisting in the wind.
Ted, I'd like to answer
yeah.
that question
please.
also. Yeah, so, you know, our package, which is a big package, which is really, and hopefully it's going to be enough. We're probably going to have more packages. I mean, economists have already told us that we're heading towards depression-like numbers in job loss. So this is just the start, not the beginning. And I think one of the objects of this this new HEROES package is to get money to folks other than just through unemployment. Yeah, we are going to extend the benefits, which is a good thing, but we're also going to have more direct payments, $1,200 per person for both adults and children, up to $6,000 per family. That will be direct deposit money or checks in the mail. We're going to supplement health benefits, so COBRA benefits. We're going to extend the period of the ACA and send more money. We're going to also do more money on scholarships, on keeping people whole from having to pay their scholarship money back. And most importantly, this package is going to send money back to the states and local governments and prevent a new group of people being unemployed, and that's teachers and firefighters, first responders, the people who pick up the garbage, people who work for local and state government whose budgets are shrinking. So this package will do a lot to try to make people much more financially secure, as well as there'll be money for more testing. And so we're going to try to keep people healthy and keep them financially secure.
Jason, just before we go to the next question, I just want to pull us back to why we're here. The HEROES Act is going to take all of these really important steps to help our communities and to help the people of the state of Florida, especially. But for Jesse and for Al, we can talk about extending unemployment, the $600 a week through January. We can talk about extending it for the next 10 years. But if the governor can't figure out how to make our unemployment system work so that people who are unemployed right now can get the help they need, none of that matters.
Right.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes, Congresswoman Wilson.
There was money in the second package for states that the governor could use to hire people. He could have hired them by now. He's had the money long enough. And there was talk of him hiring hundreds of people throughout the state to help manage the unemployment compensation process, because we all knew that it was going to be overwhelming. I don't think he did that. So it's not money, it's just his will to do what is right for the people of Florida. And he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it because what the Republicans are saying is if they get unemployment compensation of $275 and $600 from the federal government, they will never go back to work. That's too much money, $875. So this is all about the will to do what is best. And he doesn't have the will. So I thank you for having this call today, because we have to shame him publicly to give him the will. So as I said before, so he can pull up his big boy pants and do his job. He's not doing his job.
Thank you, Congresswoman Wilson. Jason, next question.
Next question comes from Wendy Rhodes. Wendy, please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I think you all pretty much answered it already, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, our next question comes from Joel Malkin. Joel, please unmute yourself.
Ted, can the reporters please say what outlet they're from?
Yeah.
Yeah, here I am. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute. Florida News Network. A lot of blame's being thrown on Governor DeSantis, but it's been shown the website was set up to fail for years. I think going back at least 5 years. Could someone speak to the need maybe for an investigation into that?
Sure. I'll go first on that, Joel. Do we want to figure out what happened and how this happened? Sure. Of course we want to know that. But it's the details. We know that it was a system, as you point out, that was set up to fail. We know it's one of the stingiest in the country. It's one of the hardest to access. The purpose seems to be to try to dehumanize people who have lost their jobs and who need unemployment. But I don't want to spend our resources right now, resources that could help Jesse or Al or the other hundreds of thousands of Floridians who need their unemployment, figuring out what Rick Scott did to screw up this system. I want to spend all of our resources figuring out what Ron DeSantis can do to fix it so that people can get the help they need. Sorry, anyone else? Debbie?
Yeah, we have been, as a delegation, looking into having a federal investigation of the unemployment system in Florida and what led to it, as well as the system breakdowns in states across the country. And so we'll be able to announce the details of that relatively soon. But we've come together to try to focus on that, and I expect that you'll be seeing a federal look at the specific problems in Florida and what led to them, as well as other states.
Debbie, thanks. And before it's 9:15, and we said we'd wrap up then. Before we wrap up, Al or Jesse, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't want to interrupt anyone. Al, if you want to go first, you're welcome to go first if you'd like.
No, the only thing that I would like to see everything attacked from all different angles. I just don't understand why the website is so difficult and why it's so unresponsive. And I know that's what we're all saying, but that's really all I have to say. It's very frustrating.
I'm gonna quickly add again. Thank you guys for this. I mean, it's nice to take a break from the stress and kind of relieve it through conversation. But I'll tell you, I'm 32 years old. I have a twin brother that lives home with me. He got tested positive for COVID on March 26th, in the beginning of all this, and we're both laid off permanently from our work because of that one reason, which is really unfair after 5 years of working in the same companies. But I'll tell you, this is the first time I feel really hopeless. I mean, I've been unemployed before in Los Angeles, working to get my dream job, but not for something like this. You know, unfortunately, I have no control over this, but this really is difficult. And I don't even know what to make of the situation at this point. It's just day by day trying to figure out where the next dollar is coming from. You know, I just hope something comes through this at the end of the day. I know my biggest concern, I asked a question regarding rent. I don't know what the steps are for, the moratorium regarding rent here in South Florida and what's going to happen with that. But with regard to me, I'm not looking forward to facing eviction. You know, I've never had that happen and I don't want that to happen, but I'm getting to a point where I'm just losing my mind at this point. I have no other sources. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. Hopefully, this gets out there and makes some sort of change for everyone like us.
Jesse, thank you. Thanks very much for joining, Al. Thank you to all my colleagues. I appreciate all of us getting on this Zoom call together. The frustration and desperation and anger that you hear from us is a direct result of the frustration and the anger and the desperation we hear from our constituents literally every single day. And Jesse and Al, you've helped put a face on that frustration for all of us, and we appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll keep fighting, and we stand here willing to help. As we said at the very first time we brought this up, the members of Congress brought this up with the governor. We are willing to help in any way we can, but we've got to figure out how to get this fixed to help the people of Florida. Thanks everyone for joining this morning.